y'all. So I apologize for not having episode 49 ready this week, but to be honest, I needed a break after episode 48, and I didn't want to start episode 49 with this cloud or haze or gloom over it, so I've made some notes I want to talk about with you all. I wanted to check Patreon's comments, gather my thoughts, and just share where I'm at moving forward with Chihayafuru. And I don't really usually do this. I don't think I've ever done this on my channel, but I'm facing a wall similar to I have been with other shows on this channel. And unlike those where I was like, oh, I've just got a few more episodes left and I'll be done, this series has at least one future season left to it and possibly another. So now that I've read the Patreon comments for episode 48 at this point, I still have episodes 49 and 50 to watch for season 2. And then I have an OVA that I want to get to. And then after that, we are taking a break. I have another sports anime that has a new season that's going to be starting week to week, and the timing just worked out perfectly that I could finish this season and then immediately start it. So I felt like the timing just fit, and then all of this stuff with episode 48 happened, and I'm like, well, that seems like a good time as I needed to take a break. So I wanted to organize this video into the good, the Taichi, and the frustrating, because that's kind of where all of my thoughts sort of fall. And so I think that's going to be it. The good, the Taichi, and the frustrating. First, we need to talk about the good, and that is I love Chihayafuru as a series. Chihaya is one of my favorite sports anime protagonists, to the point where I defend her in almost every episode, and she can literally do no wrong. She's like Mona Lisa Saperstein that's like, money please, and I'm like, yes, I will give you all of it. So the other members of Mizuzawa as well, all the side characters, the coaches, they're all characters that you can instantly fall in love with as you slowly peel back all of the layers throughout the series. So I've found a very personal connection with Chihayafuru in that Karuta reminds me a lot of the competitive speech competitions that I currently coach, that I participated in while I was in college as a student. So a lot of the fundamentals I connect with and I resonate as well. It's a series that I find inspiring as a coach, and it gives me lessons that I want to take back and share with my students. I have been made aware as of this point with the comments that season 2 barely gets to the halfway point of the entire series, which is crazy, showing how long of a series that it truly is. But look, I'm not a stranger to a slow burn. I would describe this series, though, more as like a slow thaw than a slow burn, though. And that's not a bad thing. It's just something that I need to start realigning myself with to realize. Because I've been watching Chihayafuru week to week with no breaks for almost a year now. And I realized this last week that it's made me almost feel impatient when the pacing of a series gets sluggish or when characters regress, because it feels like the story should be progressing when the events of the story have only spanned out a few days or even a few weeks or even a few months, and it's not been that long. But despite the pacing, I've really enjoyed this series, and it's overall been really watchable and entertaining, and I've loved talking about it, and I want to see where these characters go in the Karuta world, and I want to see them succeed and see what's going to happen with them. So onwards to episode 48, it's no surprise that I was mainly frustrated with the mangaka and their character work on Taichi. So let's get into Taichi. When I started this series, I mean, I didn't put Taichi in the frustrating section of this. I didn't put Taichi in the frustrating section because I want you all to know a few things about me and my relationship with this fictional character, right? One, when I started the series, to be honest, if you couldn't tell, I did not care for Taichi's character. I see the unrequited love that he has for Chihaya, and I can instantly relate to that. I see his self-doubt and his esteem issues, and I can instantly relate. And I want to root for Taichi a lot. I have wanted him to get to Class A all season. I wanted it back in season 1, but I get it. I want him to declare his rivalry with Arata. I want him to work towards being a master, etc. I have lots of expectations for Taichi. Do I have issues with Taichi at times? Yeah. A lot of people talk about how selfless Taichi is and how he puts everything towards Chihaya because he loves her, and how this entire series is about him, quote unquote, learning to be selfish towards himself and loving Karuta for himself. And when people comment about that, I just want to point to all of the hours of discussion that I've had on him for almost a year now, and the intros where I've acknowledged the comments and these things as well. And I think two things can be true at once. I think that I am able to understand a character, know why they are doing things, but also not be a fan sometimes of those decisions or character work. And that should be okay. We should be able to critique and ask rhetorical questions that don't necessarily have an answer, or the answer's obvious, but it's just you venting and being frustrated. And I feel you can root for a character, but question their decisions or just not like the choices that they make. And even if you don't like those choices, you can still be open-minded to them changing in the future and making you reevaluate. And it's also okay to not like what an author does as a writer. Does this mean that you hate the entire piece? No, not at all. And I talk about this frustration. I'll talk about this frustration a little bit later, but I feel like at times that fandoms, especially with anime, they believe that if you don't like every single mangaka's choice, then you must hate the piece, hate the mangaka. And I had the same issue with Berserk, where I would criticize Miura for some decisions and people were like, well, you hate Berserk and you hate Miura. And I'm like, no, I feel like thinking that way is very short-sighted, and it's not an engaging way to interact with literature. And that's just my opinion, but I think you can critique a mangaka while still enjoying and finding their piece engaging and wonderful, but still saying that some of the choices they make maybe aren't good. For example, Taichi has a lot of things that they have to work on. His crush on Chihaya, in my opinion, he needs to tell her about it at this point, or he needs to tell someone about it. Nobody but him truly, I mean, I'm sure everybody is guessing or has opinions, but nobody has truly been told that he likes Chihaya at all. And bottling up inside, as we've seen in this series, makes for some moments where I feel his character is at its worst. It creates toxicity for his character, not only in how it damages his own self-esteem in the moment, but also how it affects others around him. He calls Arata an enemy. Arata, who, while yes, doesn't view Taichi as a threat right now, thinks of Taichi at least fondly when they've played together in the past. And Arata has no idea that Taichi is jealous of him and doesn't like him when he's around. Whereas Arata could be a friendly rival to him, but right now Taichi's insecurities and jealousy makes it to where he just cuts off opportunities to communicate with him. And if no one knows you, that you don't like them or that you do like them, then, you know, how is that helpful? But you already know that. You already know that. Yes. While this is relatable to a lot of people, myself included, I can relate to it. I think it's also okay to be frustrated when he's like this. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, because that means that you don't like how you yourself may have been in those moments, but it also shows that you want Taichi to be better than he currently is. That him having these ugly moments, I don't feel like I should have to make an excuse for him. I haven't seen season 3 or beyond, obviously, and I don't want to know spoilers, obviously. So for now, as a reactor, part of my journey with his character is calling out these problems, so that later on, when hopefully he overcomes them, it can be a callback to my earlier commentary, and I can be like, oh wow, Romania, you were really wrong. Like, you really didn't see this coming, or something like that. You know, it should be an opportunity for me to reflect on what I've said in the past. And Taichi, you know, is selfless. I know that. Have known that for 48 weeks. And lots of people in the comments love to praise him for it. But Taichi is also selfish in his love for Chihaya, which can easily turn toxic because he hoards it, ironically, in a selfish way all to himself. People have said that Taichi may need to, quote, learn to be selfish in Karuta to be successful, but I'm honestly not a fan of that terminology, because I don't think that it's that Taichi, quote, needs to be selfish. That sounds to me kind of like a buzzword that somebody on Reddit has thrown out, and the fandom's latched onto it because it's the opposite of selfless, selfish, and it just sounds easy to remember. I believe that Taichi needs to trust in himself and love himself in order to be better at Karuta and to be able to let his feelings be known to Chihaya properly. And then the ball is in her court to do what she wants with it, you know? So along with that, I'll be honest, and I've said this many a time before on this channel, which you probably know, but I'm not currently a Chihaya and Taichi shipper. Could I be one day when I see their relationship develop into something romantic organically down the road? Well, sure. Is it okay that I'm not a shipper of them now? Also true. I do get worried sometimes that the mangaka is going to go this route that some late 90s, early 2000s series I read in junior high and high school went with the concept of, this man loves you, so you need to learn to love him back. And that's me being pessimistic. That's me being pessimistic and ignoring a lot of the developed relationships between the two of them. I don't think Chihaya will go that route, but I am jaded from stories I read that were like that. So I think that that's why Chihaya needs to know his feelings, so that because right now she's clueless to them. So she needs time to reflect with those feelings, and he needs to tell her that. So she has time to reflect, and maybe that will help her make a decision in the future. And I'm sure that that's probably going to happen. But until it does happen, because I don't know, because I don't want to be spoiled, I bring up these questions as I'm discussing. I do at times, especially in season 1, get the vibes of, oh, she'll never love me, woe is me, from Taichi. And it does read as whiny sometimes. But when I'm like, okay, well then talk to her. And that's when I've pointed out there can be kind of this double standard. I've noticed this double standard that when some have commented, well, yeah, they're just 16 and feelings are hard for them. And to which I say, yeah, I've talked about how I've been in Taichi's shoes before. And I know what that feels like. But then there's the same excuse from the fans of, well, Chihaya just needs to grow up and realize there's more to life than Karuta, which to me takes off any responsibility from Taichi. When people say that it's all on Chihaya to do it, I'm like, well, yeah, but you can't take the responsibility off of Taichi, who has admitted he loves her, and apply it to someone else that has no clue. I mean, I know y'all love this man, but he should take some accountability, you know? There's also this talk about how the season covers so much ground in only a short period of time, which can be a little frustrating for an entire season of 25 episodes to do that. And that's not the fandom's fault. It's the mangaka's choice. Again, when you've spent, like me, nearly 6 months covering only a few days worth of content, I hope folks can understand why I would be a little impatient. And I've watched Ace of the Diamond, so I am no stranger to a slow burn at all, right? Which leads me to the quote-unquote frustrating of this video, because I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's bad. I think that this next part is just what's been frustrating for me coming off the last couple of weeks on the channel with Chihayafuru. And that's that when I started this channel back in 2020, because I wanted to have a space to talk and watch shows with others who appreciated and loved anime as much as I do. And that's still my whole MO today. I've learned over the past several years that there's this very parasocial element to what I do. And I've tried to mitigate that and steel myself to not get too in my head, too involved, to get too serious with that avenue as far as comments are concerned. But I also genuinely love connecting with people. I'm an English and communications major. I love reading comments. I love responding. I love learning. So unless there are spoilers, I usually will read and comment on everything that people post. And I see your comments. I'm on Patreon, I'm on Discord, I'm on YouTube. My mods check things, but I love engaging with people. And I realize that there are moments where that parasocial veil kind of comes in there. But overall, I love it. So with episode 48, there were basically 4 types of comments that I ran into. Some were, 1, just talking about the show in general, what worked, what didn't work, and had this healthy dialogue. And I live for those comments. I live for them. I'm like, or heck, even a comment that's like, oh, I love Taichi getting to class A, or yeah, they completely forgot about Scuba that he was there. I was like, yes, those are fun too. I know I talk for ages, but even tiny or short comments are so appreciated because they show me that what I'm doing is worthwhile and that you enjoy watching me. And so I had a couple of those comments I wanted to share with you all. I've got other comments when I get to episode 49 I'm going to talk about, but I want to run through these comments because they're very specific to episode 48 and what I'm talking about. So I want to kind of go over them now with you all. Alexander Q, for example, for episode 48 said, seeing Taichi reach Class A is something I've been waiting to happen for the longest time. It was freaking time. One thing I noticed and liked is how we start season 1 with Chihaya becoming Class A as a player, and now we're ending season 2 with Taichi becoming Class A. It's not exactly a one-for-one mirroring, but it works for me in a very fun way, almost like this was a little arc of the story, and now we can move on to the next part. Yeah, I'm like, so is Tsutomu next? But Alexander Q said, look, I loved seeing Taichi win the match against Rion. I was hyped and excited for him. But yeah, I wanted to scream in frustration at him when he lost all focus because Chihaya showed up. I suspected that this was going to be the case. I didn't want Chihaya to show up because I feared that she would throw Taichi off his game, especially after Nishida said that Taichi wouldn't really want her to be there because Taichi is too emotional for his own good, for how analytical his mind is. Seeing him floundering around was painful. I wanted Chihaya to see the same cool-headed, in-control Taichi that had played in the tournament till that point. I'm glad Taichi was able to reel himself back and talk himself off the ledge, and I think that's a good sign that some progress has been made with him, but I would have rather have not seen that. Taichi is one of my favorite characters. He is, but man, seeing him just rush in and forcibly grab Chihaya's arm to drag her and watch Arata's game because he thinks that's what she should be doing was a rough moment. It looked like it hurt the way he was dragging her. Sure, he stops once he realizes that Chihaya isn't actually following him, and that's good, but it doesn't quite erase the sour taste in my mouth. Now, Grace replied to this on YouTube and said, I love your comment. I didn't really care about him grabbing her arm because it created a perfect parallel when she grabbed his arm the exact same way in season 1. She grabbed his arm and lifted him up, dragging him to watch Harada and Suo's match because they were going to be Taichi's competition when he reached Class A. And now he's doing the same thing to get Chihaya to watch her competition for the Queen title. The author loves to work with parallels. See, I love comments like that create a dialogue. I love those. We don't have to agree, but it's cool to politely talk about what's going on and acknowledge that this is my first time viewing and my opinions might change overall. That parallel between Chihaya and Taichi both getting Class A and going to see the other matches, that I was kind of so frustrated in the moment that I missed that. And so I'm glad Grace brought it up. I do think that there is, in my opinion, a little bit of difference because Chihaya just played Shinobu. So, does she really need to see her again playing? And whereas Harada and Suo, they hadn't seen Suo play before. So, but I digress. But I'm glad that Alexander Q is a big fan of Taichi and defends him, but also expresses that, yeah, that part was kind of crazy, but, we are glad that he got to Class A, right? So those comments were great. Then 2, there were comments that restated things that I said in the discussion. And look, I don't expect people to watch my hour-long discussion every week in its entirety. I even learned from somebody commenting, I think it was Grace, that said that when they comment, they restate things because it helps them to recap. And I didn't think of that form of learning and writing as a way of brainstorming. And that's so cool. And I'm glad they said that because I appreciate knowing that now. That makes me feel better because there were some comments that said things like, well, you misinterpreted this. And then went through and relisted everything I talked about in the discussion. They just left out the part where I said, yes, I understand it, but I don't like it. As if to, quote unquote, teach me why I was wrong. And that, I don't think, had the effect that those comments intended for me. It just didn't. I know when I said my thoughts about episode 48, when I got done with that discussion, and after I started editing it, I was like, people are going to disagree with me. And that's okay. That really is okay. Taichi's not my favorite, but I know he's a lot of people's favorites. And that's fine. That to me is what's great about stories, especially those with a big ensemble. It's been frustrating to read some comments and feel as if my justifications were not only ignored, but that they were deemed to be absolutely wrong and they needed correction. And look, these are just fictional characters. Right? Just because I don't agree with someone, that doesn't make me correct. And it just means that I have a different opinion. Right? Another thing that's kind of weighed me down in the same vein is that some people comment, and I understand this because they've said as much in the comments over time. I keep track of some people's comments and their mindset so that I know going in what they're thinking. But some people have commented definitely with the Taichi Chihaya ship in mind. And so their interpretations are viewing Chihaya through a lens of her liking Taichi and vice versa. And when I've been explicit in my discussions that I don't really care for Taichi and Chihaya as a ship right now, and I want to look at them objectively, I sometimes take it as that person, again, is just ignoring me and putting their shipping agenda out there, maybe without respect for this being my first time watching the show, or respecting that I still have over half the series to get through. And maybe I don't want a shipping agenda pushed on me, and I want to experience the show organically and develop that ship organically. And that has been frustrating sometimes. So, for example, Grace had a comment with episode 48 saying, I understand that 1 step forward and 2 steps back is frustrating. Taichi is slowly progressing. There's been a very short time since the beginning. Taichi started seriously practicing his swings in January. Chihaya said Class A for Taichi is a priority in March. And this made Kamino and Nishida think for the first time ever that he was starting to think about himself. And it's June now, and he just won the championship yesterday. It's just a couple of months to overcome years of trauma and deep-rooted mental issues. He's learning even with the setbacks. And yeah, I was glad that Grace made that comment because it did help me put things in perspective. Like I said, I've been watching this for a year. So to me, watching week to week for a year, I was like, shouldn't we be over this by now? But the reality is it has only been a short amount of time. And look, I recently watched an episode of Trigun Stargaze, and all the things they said in that episode, particularly there was a quote that said sometimes people are changing, and as they're changing, they regress, but they're still trying to move forward. And I was like, in my frustration, I should have taken that into account. And so I'll own that. I appreciate the timeline. That's something that I lost sight of in the months I've been watching this arc. And I think that I was being a little bit short-sighted on I was remiss to not mention that and to take that into account. So I am glad that people pointed that out to just help be like, hey, keep this in mind. That was really helpful. Now, the third type of comments that I received were honestly the ones on Patreon I was dreading the most. There were 2 on Patreon. One said, I was looking forward to this episode, only to be greeted by yelling. And the other said, the other was a reply saying, it's so funny. It's so frustrating. It's funny at this point. At least we can enjoy the episode in the comments section. LMAO. Yeah, I did read those. I'm human. And for the longest time, I have been bottling up a lot of my frustration. And then I think in episode 48, it all came gushing out. That episode, I had built up in my head that Taichi was going to have his swan song. He was going to get to A rank, and he got there. Yay. But it was in a way that I felt took his character back and felt repetitive. It felt like we'd already been here. We'd already had the things that were brought up in that match were things we'd already addressed. And while I understand that it takes time to get over that and you're not going to undo all of this trauma in one match, I'm watching Windbreaker at the same time that I'm watching this series, and the main character of Windbreaker has a similar feel as Taichi, not to spoil anything in the show, but just to me has a similar feel of Taichi. But when they keep coming across the same roadblock, it's handled in a different way each time. And it feels fresh, and it feels nuanced, and it feels layered, and this just feels repetitive. Like, it doesn't bring anything new to the table, it's just the same thing over and over again. And that's just something that didn't work for me in episode 48. And so, yeah, I was angry and I was frustrated because I've invested my time and my energy into watching this show, and I have expectations. And I'm not going to apologize for my venting. I'm not going to apologize for that discussion because I needed to get that out there, and that's my honest opinion. I felt it was as genuine and honest as I've been. But if that's not the content that you want from me, then I'm sorry that I didn't live up to your expectations. And the fact of it's so frustrating, it's funny at this point, which someone said, I don't know how I can organically come to enjoy a character if I just don't feel it. And I can fake it, I guess, but I'm not the best actress, to be honest. I would not be good on Traitors. I would not be good at all. I'm not going to lie. Those comments probably tore me up worse than anything else. And I know as a content creator, I signed up for that. I'm here to read comments. You're going to get comments where I get comments a lot where people say I'm annoying or whatever. And I deal with that. I signed up for it. And people are welcome to think that. Absolutely. And you can and have the right to comment that. And if you're not happy with the content I'm creating, I do want to know that so that I know to pivot and maybe do something different or to do a different series. If people are not enjoying that reaction for that series, I need to go move on to something else. But I'm not going to tell you that didn't hurt to read it, especially knowing that I let someone down that was paying for me to create content. So that I am sorry for. But finally, there were people who were kind, despite disagreeing with me. So Grace's comment had a lot of disagreements, and that was fine. They were like, I'm sorry you hated this episode so much. I did not hate the episode, first of all. I did not hate it. I said in the reaction I didn't like it. But hate and not like are two different things. They said, it is indeed an unpopular opinion since most people feel the catharsis of Taichi finally getting to Class A being worthy of it. I thought that Taichi, I was happy he got to Class A. Did I think he earned it in that match? No, I do not. I will stand by that. I don't think he earned it. He was sloppy. He was rushing. Kana and Chihaya say it just as much. If Rion had been on her game, he wouldn't have won. And do I think he wouldn't have deserved it? Yeah, because he wasn't on his game. He was not performing properly. And if you're being that sloppy in a final match, how do you ever think you're going to battle Arata? How do you ever think you're going to battle Suo? You won't. So he needs to learn from that. That's why I was like, he won and he's so happy and excited. I'm like, but what are you going to take away from that match? I know he, at the end, realized some things. He's like, I can do it. And I was like, yeah. He needs to reflect, and so I hope I see him reflect on that win, because if he thinks he's just going to get by the skin of his teeth against Arata and Suo, as the meme says, honey, you got a big storm coming. So I just need him to reflect a little bit more about it. And the fact that he didn't reflect and it was just like, I did it. I was like, I need you to reflect before you cry. But maybe we'll see that in the future, you know? Maybe we'll see that in the future. But yeah, however, I understand, Grace says, I understand where you're coming from. I agree this episode was a bit rushed. I don't like how the mangaka had to make Taichi struggle, even if I do understand where he's coming from. That's exactly how I feel. That's literally how I feel. I can't be fully mad at him because I relate too much to him. Yes. I was like, this is exactly what I've been saying. I just said it in a more aggressive tone. But I mean, y'all have not seen me mad on this channel. No, I've never been mad completely on this channel. Frustrated? Yeah. Disappointed? Oh yeah. Mad? No. And I'm not mad at Taichi. I'm just frustrated with the mangaka's decisions in some parts. But y'all know that. Grace says, on the other hand, I completely understand your frustration because that's exactly how I felt when I've experienced failure to improve, especially when I assumed I was fine. I don't think you hated Taichi nearly half as much as some people have hated themselves in those moments, so it's all right. Besides, you said, even if this is realistic, it's a work of fiction where we want to witness characters progress more linearly. I do believe Taichi made some important progress in this match, even if it was a bit of a mess. And they went on to discuss that. And I do, going back to their comment, I do agree with a lot of things that they said. And I was like, yeah, that all makes sense. My frustration definitely overpowered my pathos overpowered my logos in episode 48 for sure. And this part that Grace said, you wanted to like this episode and had high expectations, which made this even more disappointing. Yeah. Although some parts were indeed amusing, knowing what's coming next, I'm not going to give you any possible hints. Thank you for that. But I'll give you my honest opinion, and that's one of the reasons I consider this part of the introduction of Chihayafuru, because it's both art and the storytelling. And they say it improves a lot from this point. They said there's still flaws and things to be frustrated about, which I can imagine, but everybody said season 3 is amazing. I don't want any spoilers. I don't want any details. I don't want to know how. I don't want to know why. Obviously, I'm a blind reactor, but I've assumed as much. But I didn't want to get into that season with this mindset and being clouded, because I don't think that's fair to you all that want me to see me react to it and want me to be honest. I don't feel like that's fair. So I wanted to take time to go through these comments and go through talking out episode 48 before diving into 49, 50 in the OVA, because I feel like that's only fair. Indianka, who's on YouTube, says, I appreciate your honest opinions. That's what I'm here for, and for different perspectives that are fascinating. I understand your frustration. I binged the first 2 seasons in 2 days, and I'm like, how? So I can only imagine how different it feels to watch for a year. I was musing, of course, so I'm sorry if it sounded like I was trying to push something on you. And that's what I feel like. I don't think most people are trying to do that. It can just come across that way, but getting tone in text can be hard sometimes, so I get that. I have and then they said, I have a complicated relationship with Chihayafuru as a whole. There are things I love to pieces, like the overall atmosphere, the deep and poetic moments, and there are things that frustrated me to the point that I wanted to drop it. Sometimes I took long breaks. But in the end, it still ended up being an irreplaceable piece of my life and an anchor to the peaceful summer of 2013. And that's why I can't help but sometimes take on an apologist role. The summer of 2013 seems like such simple times compared to now. And I got instantly nostalgic for it. I was like, yes, please. But yeah, I definitely feel like this is going to be one of those series where the parts I really love. And the parts that frustrate me make me almost want to drop it. Because that's where I was at episode 48. I was like, if the completionist in me would not have kicked in, I did almost want to drop this after this last episode because I was so frustrated. But then I was like, no, that's not fair to you all. There's only 2 episodes left in an OVA. I need to at least stop, get through that, and then take a break. Like, that seemed like the most logical thing to do. Alice then said, I'm the only one alone apparently saying I loved the crash out this episode. If y'all get some amusement out of it, I guess that works. But then Alice said, for me, seeing you're so passionate about the discussion and letting out these feelings mean you really care about the show and the characters. A person wouldn't be so frustrated about a piece of media if they didn't really care that much. It's also how I talk about my favorite characters with people sometimes. Being so frustrated at Taichi just means you really want him to improve. And you've said multiple times that you want to root for him and want him to make Class A. So there's no problem with me in this reaction at all. Everyone reacts to this media differently. It would be boring to want everyone to react the same way as I do. I watch reactions to get other people's perspectives. Don't feel bad for saying what you truly feel, girl. And that's kind of sort of the heart and soul of it, so thank you. I really could not have said that better, so I was like, I'm going to read this verbatim. But I'm not asking for everyone to praise the reaction and discussion, like, because if I were a Taichi fan, I would probably be like, girl, you don't even know. I'd be like, girl, you don't even know. But I would hope that if people were like that, they would say, okay, you just wait. You just hold on now. Instead of, here's how you're wrong. You know, so yeah, I basically just needed an extra week to get all this out of my system. When I asked the mods about it, I was like, I did not feel comfortable diving into episode 49 because I was just still so tense and frustrated about it. So, I mean, if you should know anything about me, and this is beyond all parasocial things, and I don't care people knowing this, I don't hold grudges. I have worked very hard to not since I was a kid. I have family that do, and growing up around that has made me really want to avoid that, to forgive and be forgiven and just move forward and make good content for you all. So, am I going to call Taichi out if he makes me frustrated? Well, yes, because I can do that. Am I going to try moving forward and be a little bit more open-minded about him as a character now that I have all this out of my system? Well, yes, I am an adult. And I'm probably going to be a little bit more objective and not so shipper goggly, because the fact that I don't like Taichi and Chihaya as a ship, when I get into that mindset, I'm very protective of ships. I'm either one way or the other. It's a multi-shipper paradise and everybody's in a big polyamorous gloop. It's like free and we're all just hanging out with everybody and it's fine. Or I get really protective of my ships. And so it's like one or the other. There's not really a lot of in between. So I need to just start putting the ship stuff off to the side and being like, let's not get so shipper focused with Chihayafuru. We're still way early in the game for that. But I'm also not going to give rude comments any more real estate in my brain. There was a time where when I started the channel, I said I'm going to answer every single comment. And then people started spoiling. So I had to stop reading those in order to enjoy the story and give you blind reactions. But now, if folks are just rude, I'm just going to heart it and move on. If there are spoilers, I'm just going to heart it and move on. And hopefully you can understand, and hopefully you can enjoy with me the rest of season 2, starting next week with episode 49, that I have to watch episode 49, episode 50, the OVA. And then I'm going to take a break. Ace of the Diamonds new season is coming out. Speaking of slow burns. And by the time that gets done, or by the time some time passes later on this summer or fall, maybe I will feel better coming back into season 3, right? And I told the mods, if I'm still watching Ace of the Diamond, I don't know how many seasons there's going to be in that season that's coming up. Probably a lot. But as I'm watching that, I may start recording season 3 on my own without looking at comments, to have a completely blank slate. And then obviously I'm still going to read your comments. I'm still going to reply. They'll probably give me more nuance and things like that. But I may go ahead and start a little bit early and get ahead of the game and see how I feel about it without any influence from the outside sphere. So in any case, I didn't know how long this was going to be. Of course, I'm going to talk for 35 minutes. Why not? But I thank you for watching this video. And, you know, I'm sorry I'm making you wait an extra week. Apologies for that. But I appreciate all of you and your support and for giving your time to watch me watch a show that you enjoy. And I want that content to be quality in the future. So I'm going to keep working hard at that. So I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please take care, stay safe, and yeah, I will be back next week as we're going to move back to our regularly scheduled program and get back into episode 49, aka episode 24 of season 2 of Chihayafuru. And I'll see you then. Bye.